Ethan had always been the reliable one, the kind of older brother who noticed every change, every hesitation, every small sign that something was wrong. Lately, though, he seemed different. He moved around their apartment in a restless haze, staying up late, pacing the living room floor, and staring blankly at the walls. His younger sister, Lily, had been watching him quietly, unsure how to approach him without seeming intrusive. She could feel that the calm, confident brother she had always known was slipping away, replaced by a shadow of uncertainty. One evening, the city lights flickered through their apartment window, casting long reflections across the wooden floor. Ethan sat heavily on the couch, his shoulders slumped, as if carrying invisible weight. Lily sat beside him, hesitant, unsure how to begin. She had spent so many years looking up to him, relying on his guidance, and now she realized it was her turn to offer support. "Ethan, are you okay?" she asked gently, her voice breaking the silence that had stretched too long. Ethan looked at her, attempting a small smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. There was a storm hidden there, something deeper than simple stress or fatigue. I don't know, Lily," he admitted after a pause, his voice low. "I feel like I'm trying to be someone I'm not. Like everything I do is just to meet expectations that aren't even mine." Lily's heart ached. She had seen him succeed, achieve, and always maintain that sense of composure. But now vulnerability had taken over. She reached for his hand, offering warmth and connection, hoping that her presence alone could give him some comfort. Yet Ethan quickly pulled his hand away, distracted by a phone notification, and excused himself, leaving Lily staring at the city skyline. She felt a mixture of concern and helplessness. How could she help someone who didn't fully understand what was troubling him himself? For hours, Lily reflected on her brother's change. She remembered all the times he had guided her, encouraged her to chase dreams, or offered a shoulder to lean on. Now, the roles were reversed, and she realized she needed patience more than advice. There were no quick fixes, no sudden words that could restore confidence instantly. She decided that the only thing she could do was listen, observe, and offer gentle guidance. The next morning, she tried to create a sense of normalcy. She made coffee for both of them and suggested a short walk to get some fresh air. At first, Ethan resisted, distracted by the lingering weight in his mind, but eventually he agreed. Walking side by side in the quiet streets, the city slowly waking around them, Lily began to talk about small things: the weather, the new cafe down the street, a story she had read. She avoided pressing questions, letting the conversation flow naturally, hoping that the comfort of shared moments would allow Ethan to open up at his own pace. As they walked, Ethan's pace gradually slowed. The silence between them was not awkward. It was thoughtful. Lily noticed his eyes taking in details he usually ignored: the blooming flowers on a nearby balcony, the laughter of children playing across the street. She realized that these small observations were signs of him reconnecting with the world in a way he hadn't in weeks. It was a subtle shift, barely noticeable, but it gave her hope. By the time they returned home, Ethan was quieter but calmer. He didn't speak much, but Lily could sense a softening in his posture, a slight release of tension that hadn't been there before. They spent the rest of the day in a comfortable silence, each doing their own tasks but aware of the other's presence. Lily made dinner, Ethan helped without speaking, and for the first time in days it felt like a normal evening. That night, after lights were dimmed and the city outside had gone still, Ethan sat near the window, staring out at the skyline once more. Lily approached him, sitting down quietly beside him, her hand resting on the couch close to his. She didn't need to ask questions or give answers. Her presence was enough. She understood that healing, even the process of self-understanding, couldn't be rushed. Ethan needed time to reflect, to process, and to discover the feelings that had been buried beneath layers of responsibility and expectation. Ethan finally spoke, almost to himself. I think I've been so focused on what I should do, what everyone expects of me, that I forgot what I actually want. His voice trembled slightly, the honesty raw and unguarded. Lily smiled softly, squeezing her hand gently. Then maybe it's time to listen to yourself, she said. Those words hung in the air like a promise. Simple yet powerful. They didn't solve everything, but they planted a seed of awareness. A beginning of self-reflection that Ethan had been avoiding for too long. As the night deepened, Lily stayed with him until he felt calm enough to rest. She realized that helping someone understand themselves wasn't about providing answers or solutions. It was about creating space for them to explore their thoughts, fears, and desires. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but she was determined to be there for him, every step of the way. The city outside slept, but inside the apartment, a quiet shift had begun. Ethan's worry hadn't disappeared, but a spark of hope had taken root, thanks to Lily's patience, care, and unwavering support. Little did they both know that this was only the beginning of a journey, one that would lead Ethan to confront his fears, rediscover his passions, and eventually open his heart in ways he had never imagined. The weekend arrived, and Lily had a plan. She wanted to help Ethan break free from the weight that had been pressing down on him, even if just for a few hours. She suggested they go to a small cafe downtown, a quiet spot they had loved visiting during their childhood. It wasn't fancy, but it had character-warm wooden tables, soft light filtering through large windows, and a calm atmosphere that made everything feel safe. Ethan hesitated at first, unsure if he was in the mood to be social, or even leave the apartment, but he eventually agreed, giving Lily a faint, reluctant smile. As they walked through the busy streets, the hum of the city around them, Lily noticed how Ethan's gaze lingered on things he usually ignored: the colors of the autumn leaves, the small bookstore tucked between two larger shops, the laughter of strangers walking past. She realized that even the simple act of stepping outside was already helping him reconnect with the world. It was subtle, but progress was progress, and she silently applauded his effort. Once they arrived at the cafe, the familiar scent of coffee and baked goods welcomed them. They found a corner table and settled in, the soft murmur of conversations around them creating a comforting background. Ethan seemed quieter than usual, his hands wrapped around a cup of coffee, staring into the steam as if he were searching for answers there. Lily didn't rush him. She simply let him sit in the moment, understanding that forcing conversation could push him further away. Then something caught both their attention. Across the room, a young woman was sketching in her notebook, completely absorbed in her art. Her hair caught the sunlight streaming through the window, and she wore a serene expression, the kind of calm confidence that seemed effortless. Lily noticed Ethan glance at her, curiosity flickering in his eyes. It wasn't the overt interest of attraction. It was more subtle, a recognition of someone who seemed completely in tune with themselves. Lily smiled quietly to herself. Maybe he needs a reminder that there's life outside routines, she whispered, more to herself than to Ethan. She understood that he needed inspiration, not pressure. Sometimes, seeing someone else fully immersed in what they loved could awaken desires and passions he had forgotten existed. They watched her for a while, and Lily saw a shift. Ethan's shoulders relaxed, the tension in his jaw eased, and the faraway look in his eyes softened. He took a sip of his coffee, letting out a small sigh, almost as if he had realized something he had been avoiding. I think I've been so caught up in what I should do that I forgot what I actually enjoy, he admitted quietly, almost to himself. Lily reached across the table and lightly touched his hand. Then maybe it's time to focus on what matters to you, she said softly. Her words weren't commanding. They were gentle, like a guide pointing toward a path he could choose for himself. Ethan didn't respond immediately. Instead, he took a deep breath and looked around, taking in the small details of the cafe, the people, and the sunlight. For the first time in weeks, he seemed present, fully aware of the world around him. As they left the cafe, the crisp afternoon air filled their lungs, and the streets were bustling with life. Ethan walked beside Lily in thoughtful silence. He didn't need to speak. Lily could sense the change in him. The spark of curiosity, of self-reflection, had been ignited. He was starting to remember the person he used to be, the one who didn't live by expectations, but by choices and passions. Back at home, they spent the evening in quiet companionship. Lily prepared dinner while Ethan helped in small ways, not out of obligation, but because he wanted to. There was laughter now, subtle and soft, breaking through the heaviness that had dominated their days before. They talked about simple things, movies, memories, plans for the week, and even in these light conversations, Ethan was beginning to feel alive again. Later that night, as the city lights shimmered against the dark sky, Ethan sat by the window, looking out at the world beyond their apartment. Lily joined him, sitting close but leaving space for reflection. She didn't ask questions or give advice. She simply shared the quiet moment, understanding that real change came from within. Ethan finally spoke, his voice low but steady. I think I've been trying to live for others too long. Maybe it's time I figure out what I want. What makes me happy? Lily nodded, squeezing his hand gently. You deserve that, Ethan. And I'll be here while you figure it out. Her words were simple, yet they carried reassurance, love, and a promise of support. She knew he wasn't ready to make big decisions yet, but she also knew that the first step, recognizing the need to listen to himself, had been taken. That night, Ethan went to bed feeling lighter than he had in weeks. The anxiety and confusion hadn't vanished, but the seed of self-understanding had been planted. He realized that life wasn't about meeting every expectation or following every rule. It was about exploring, feeling, and allowing oneself to experience new things. He didn't yet know where this journey would lead, but for the first time in a long while, he was curious to find out. Lily, watching him drift into sleep, felt a quiet sense of accomplishment. Helping someone understand themselves wasn't about giving answers, it was about creating space, encouraging exploration, and being present without judgment. And she knew that Ethan's journey had only just begun. The spark that had started at the cafe would grow, guiding him toward discovery, connection, and perhaps even the beginnings of love. The weekend had done more than break routine. It had shown Ethan a glimpse of possibility, a reminder that life still held moments of beauty, inspiration, and quiet wonder. And Lily, proud and hopeful, knew that this was the first of many steps toward helping her brother fully understand himself, his heart, and what he truly wanted from life. In the weeks that followed, Ethan began to change in ways that surprised even him. The weight of doubt that had been pressing on his shoulders started to lift, replaced by a quiet curiosity about life and about himself. Lily watched carefully, proud and patient, knowing that growth wasn't immediate but steady, built on small choices and simple actions. Ethan started reconnecting with old hobbies he had abandoned. The guitar gathering dust in the corner of his room, the sketchbooks stacked on a shelf, the books he had always loved, but never had time to read. Each small step reminded him of the parts of himself he had neglected. One sunny afternoon, Lily persuaded Ethan to volunteer at a local community center. It was a small gesture, Just a few hours helping organize events and assist children with their activities. But it offered him something he hadn't felt in a long time. Purpose without expectation. He smiled more freely than he had in months, laughed without self-consciousness, and even helped a young boy solve a problem in his drawing. Seeing the boy beam with pride, Ethan felt a warmth he had forgotten, an affirmation that small actions could carry meaning and joy. It was during one of these volunteer sessions that he saw her again, the woman from the cafe. She was helping set up a small art workshop for children, patiently guiding them as they painted and sketched. Her presence was calm but magnetic, and Ethan felt an unexplainable pull toward her. There was something about the way she approached life, fully present, focused, kind, that reminded him of the parts of himself he was trying to rediscover. Their first conversation was simple. She introduced herself as Claire, smiling warmly, and Ethan realized he could talk without pretense. They shared small stories, exchanged casual laughter, and Ethan noticed that the ease he felt in her presence was different from anything he had experienced recently. There was no pressure, no expectation, just genuine connection. Lily, watching from a distance, felt a quiet happiness for him. She knew Ethan was learning not only about himself, but also about the joy of meaningful connections. As the days turned into weeks, Ethan began exploring more. He joined a small art class, started attending weekend hikes, and even revisited his favorite local bookstore. With each new experience, he felt more in touch with his passions, and his confidence began to return. Lily encouraged him quietly, offering reassurance when doubt crept back, but mostly giving him the space to grow on his own. She understood that self-discovery was personal, and that the best guidance often came from gentle support rather than advice. Ethan's growing friendship with Claire became an unexpected but welcome part of his journey. They would meet casually at the community center, attend the occasional art workshop, or just talk over coffee. Claire had a way of listening without judgment, of offering insight without directing him, and Ethan found himself opening up about fears he hadn't voiced to anyone else. With her, he realized that vulnerability wasn't weakness. It was a bridge to understanding, both of himself and of others. One evening, after a long day helping at the community center, Ethan and Claire walked together along a quiet street, the sunset painting the sky in soft pink and orange hues. For the first time in months, Ethan felt a sense of peace within himself. He reflected on how far he had come, the anxiety that had plagued him, the doubt that had shadowed his every decision, and the fear that had held him back. Claire's presence didn't solve these challenges, but it illuminated a path, showing him that self-understanding and connection could coexist. Lily noticed the subtle changes too. Ethan laughed more openly, spoke with renewed clarity, and even started making plans for things he genuinely wanted to do, rather than what others expected. He seemed lighter, freer, and more attuned to the world around him. And yet she knew there was more work to be done. True self-awareness wasn't a single moment. It was a continuous process, shaped by experiences, choices, and reflections. One night, Ethan confided in Lily, speaking with a newfound honesty. "I never realized how much I had been living for everyone else," he said quietly. "I was so focused on doing what I thought I should that I lost sight of who I really am." Lily listened, squeezing his hand gently, her eyes soft with understanding. "You're finding your way, Ethan," she said. "And that's all anyone can do, discover what makes their heart feel alive." That realization became a turning point. Ethan started to make decisions that reflected his values rather than outside pressures. He explored passions he had abandoned, formed connections that inspired him, and allowed himself to feel joy without guilt. Claire remained an important part of his life, not as a distraction, but as a reminder that relationships could support growth and self-awareness rather than hinder it. The journey wasn't always easy. There were moments of doubt, moments when old fears resurfaced, and moments when he questioned whether he was making the right choices. But each time, he reminded himself of the progress he had made. He was learning that understanding oneself wasn't about perfection. It was about awareness, courage, and the willingness to embrace change. By the end of this period, Ethan had transformed in subtle but meaningful ways. His eyes carried a spark, his smile was more genuine, and his voice held confidence tempered by humility. He had learned that life wasn't a series of expectations to meet but a journey to navigate, guided by intuition, passion, and the support of those who cared for him. Lily watched him with pride and quiet relief, knowing that her role wasn't to fix him, but to walk alongside him, offering guidance, encouragement, and unwavering love. And as Ethan continued to grow, he realized something profound. Self-discovery wasn't a solitary path. It involved trust, connection, and the willingness to let others in. Claire, Lily, and the experiences he embraced became mirrors reflecting back to him the person he had always been, waiting for the chance to step forward. The lessons he learned during this time would shape not only who he was, but how he approached life, love, and relationships in the future. The letter arrived on a quiet morning, neatly slipped under the door. Ethan picked it up, recognizing the familiar logo of his old company. His hands trembled slightly as he opened it. The letter was from a mentor he had once admired, offering him a position he had dreamed of years ago, a role that promised prestige, stability, and recognition. But as he read the words, a strange feeling settled over him. Excitement was there, yes, but also doubt. For the first time, he asked himself, is this what I really want? Or is it what I've been conditioned to want? Lily noticed his hesitation immediately. She had watched him grow, seen him explore passions and reconnect with parts of himself he had long ignored. Now, she knew the final test was his own choice. She approached him, placing a hand gently on his shoulder. Whatever you decide, Ethan, it should be for you, not for anyone else, she said softly. He nodded, grateful for her wisdom and support. Ethan spent the next few days reflecting. He thought about the quiet mornings at the cafe, the volunteer work that had given him purpose, and the laughter shared with Claire. He remembered the freedom he had felt in pursuing activities he truly enjoyed, the clarity that came from listening to his own heart. It became clear that the decision wasn't about rejecting opportunity, but about aligning it with his own desires and values. One evening, he sat with Claire on a park bench as the sun dipped below the horizon. He shared his fears, his hopes, and the letter that had stirred both excitement and doubt. Claire listened with patience and understanding, never pressuring him, simply encouraging him to trust himself. Her calm presence reminded him that life's choices were not just about achievement. They were about fulfillment and happiness. After careful consideration, Ethan finally made his decision. He would accept the offer, but on his own terms. He would define success by his own standards, not by expectations imposed on him. This was the first time in a long while that he felt fully in control of his life. The anxiety and confusion that had once clouded his mind had given way to clarity and determination. That evening, he shared his choice with Lily. Her eyes sparkled with pride and relief as she hugged him tightly. "I'm so proud of you, Ethan," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "You've not only found your path, but you've also learned to listen to yourself." He smiled, feeling lighter than he had in years, the weight of doubt finally lifting in the weeks that followed. Ethan embraced his new role with confidence, bringing creativity, passion, and authenticity into everything he did. He continued to nurture his friendship with Claire, their connection deepening naturally and beautifully. He realized that understanding oneself wasn't a single moment or achievement, It was a continuous journey shaped by choices, experiences, and the people who supported and inspired him. Lily watched Ethan with a mixture of pride and joy. Her brother had not only grown in confidence but had discovered the importance of authenticity, self-reflection, and meaningful connections. He had learned that life wasn't about meeting expectations or following a predetermined path. It was about embracing opportunities that aligned with one's heart and values. One quiet evening, the three of them, Ethan, Lily, and Claire, sat together, sharing laughter and stories. There was a sense of harmony, a realization that personal growth and human connection could coexist beautifully. Ethan understood that self-discovery was ongoing, but he also knew he now had the courage and clarity to navigate life with purpose. As the night sky stretched above them, Ethan felt a profound sense of peace. The journey had been challenging, filled with doubt and reflection, but it had led him to a deeper understanding of himself, his desires, and his relationships. For the first time in years, he felt fully alive, ready to embrace whatever the future held with hope, courage, and an open heart. Ethan's story was no longer about fear or uncertainty. It was about growth, self-awareness, and the quiet, transformative power of love, support, and reflection. And though the journey of understanding oneself was never truly complete, he knew he now had the wisdom and strength to walk it confidently, surrounded by those who cherished and inspired him.